everyone to our next session of Women You Should Absolutely Know in the Coachella Valley. I'm really excited to introduce you to Elizabeth Scarcella, owner of the Hamel House. I've met Elizabeth through a few networking opportunities here at this beautiful property, and her story is one you should absolutely know about. So first, Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about Hamel House and how that came to be.
Oh, thank you so much. This is such an honor to be here. I was so excited when you asked me to do this.
That.
Really, truly. So Hamel House is actually an extension of my anxiety program. So what's important to know first before knowing about Hamel House is that I'm an anxiety expert.
Yes.
And I have been studying anxiety and helping those with anxiety since 1994.
Oh, wow.
I'm giving my age away.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So I was deemed worry wart. That is the name that my second grade teacher called me, was worry wart. And I have really been anxious pretty much my entire life.
Okay.
I remember being anxious when I was 4 and 5 years old. And I obviously, or not obviously, I began to study that. I went on to study that. I understood a lot about anxiety before I even got into college. I was a hypnotist before I got into high school. I understood what hypnosis was, and this is back in the days when you had to go to the library to figure things out. There's no internet.
Right, research was much different.
There's not even microfiche. You had to, like, if you guys even know what that word is, you literally had to read it in a book, right?
Yeah,
so I kind of had a natural gift in doing hypnosis and other types of energy work.
Okay.
And just as time has gone on, I have gone on to learn what it is that I naturally know. What do you call that, and how can I carry that into a practice? How can I help people with that?
Right, and I want to interject really quickly.
Yeah.
I apologize. You said that you knew when you were 4 and 5 years old.
Yes.
And what did that feel like? Because I think that anxiety is sort of pushed off to the side, and parents may have a child who has that and not know the signs. So what did that feel like to you as a child?
Okay, very great. So anxiety in children and me looks like a lot of worry.
Okay.
It looks like worry that children shouldn't have. It's worry about a friend, and not just like, oh, mommy, I wonder if Julie's gonna be okay. But mommy, I'm worried about Julie. But what about Julie? But what about Julie? But what about Julie? That's not normal for a 4 or 5 year old to be focusing on something. Right? Or in second grade, being worried about getting good grades. I mean, I know that there's a push to do well in school, but to be so worried and consumed in second grade about whether or not you're going to get good grades and are you going to do well on this test.
Okay.
Right?
And was that something that your parents sort of also said, that's not a real thing, you're just worrying, or were they supportive of that?
Well, my mom is an anxious person too. So I'm sure, I didn't ask this direct question of her, but I'm going to. I'm sure she probably just excused it as this is just the way people are, right? And my dad is a quiet person. He worked a lot when I was little, so and remember, I mean, I was born in the 60s, guys. It was it was a different generation. Husbands and fathers were not the way they are now, unfortunately. They were not sitting down and talking about feelings with their girls. You know? So my dad was very cuddly, and he held me a lot, and I'm sure if asking him now intuitively why he was always holding me, I'm sure it was because he could feel my anxiety, but he certainly didn't know how to articulate that. And my parents were very young. My mom was 20 when
Which
she
was
had me.
so typical then, right?
20, and my dad was 22. Like, what the heck do you know when you're 20?
Exactly.
I mean, nothing.
Especially not to manage something that might be a little different like your child's anxiety.
I'm just learning that I know a little bit, and I'm nearly 55, right?
And looking fabulous, by the way.
Thank you. So, yes, I had anxiety. I began studying it. I learned that anxiety, you guys, this is the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway, is anxiety is not just a mental health condition.
Okay.
It is a physical, medical body condition. Anxiety is literally coming from the body. It is not coming from the mind.
Interesting.
Stress.
Sure.
Feelings of stress are originating in our mind. feelings of anxiety are in our body. So what's the difference?
Right.
between
How do you
stress and,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so anxiety is stress unmanaged for 6 or more months with a category of symptoms.
Okay.
So there are 54 classic symptoms of anxiety. And so if you look at that and you have 10 or more of these symptoms, and you've had these symptoms for more than 6 months, along with feeling stressed out, then it's possible, of course I'm not diagnosing anybody,
Of course.
it's possible that you have anxiety, and then that means that managing your thoughts is never going to work. And my big platform that I tell people, which I will get around to Hamel House, I promise you. The big platform that I want everyone to know is anxiety is not your fault. It's not any more of your fault than having diabetes or cancer or heart disease. None of those are your fault. Could you have done something to manage your sugars to not get diabetes? Sure. Could you have gone to screenings and not had cancer come up as rapidly as it did? Sure. Could you have exercised more and not eaten red meat to have heart disease? Sure, but really it's your body who made these diseases.
Right, and are some people more, it's easier for some people to have anxiety at this level than others?
Correct.
Okay.
So that's a great question. So stress, not anxiety, stress causes a multitude of medical conditions, including heart disease, including high blood pressure, including cancer, including a lot of things. Stress can cause these diseases.
Right.
Stress also can cause anxiety.
Okay.
Not everyone with stress becomes anxious. But everyone who's anxious was once stressed.
Understood. So if you were to know ahead of time some of the signs, or as you're moving out of stress and into anxiety, can you put a halt to that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
100%. So what happens, without me getting all geeky, which I love to get geeky and sciencey, but without getting totally geeky, what happens is in anxiety, the process, the disease process, or the dis-ease process, if you will, is that the limbic system of the brain becomes dysregulated.
Okay.
And when that happens, their autonomic nervous system goes haywire. So you might have heard of fight or flight.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So that's the sympathetic arm of the autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
Right? And then we have another arm of our autonomic nervous system called parasympathetic, which we call rest and digest. And you would learn, or optimally, which is what I'm here to tell people about, optimally you would learn how to regulate your limbic system so that you can help your nervous system be able to get back to parasympathetic so that it's not creating disease processes.
Interesting. Okay. And those are tools that you teach people?
Yes.
Right? And do you teach people of all levels of anxiety, or do you specialize in those who are suffering at a high level?
No, I actually teach people of all levels, but it seems like people come to me when they're
when
bad.
it's already severe.
Right.
So for those people who maybe have a little bit of those symptoms, anxiety symptoms, but just keep pushing it off as stress from work, stress from a relationship.
Yes.
What would you say the top 3 to 5, this is not just stress symptoms that they would have?
Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you for that. My gosh, such great questions. So if you are having poor sleep more than 3 times a week, that is a key symptom. And by poor sleep, this is what I define poor sleep. You are waking up more than once a night.
Okay.
And it is taking you more than 20 minutes to get back to sleep.
Okay.
Or it's taking you more than 20 minutes to fall asleep. That is a sleep issue.
Okay.
If you are a woman and you're having PMS issues, hard periods, emotional periods, that is a real sign.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, believe it or not. It's not the only sign.
Sure.
If you're having tummy issues, if you are having bloating and gas, or you're noticing that you are not able to eat foods that you used to be able to eat, that they upset you, that is another sign.
Okay. And all of that sounds very much like you could just write that off to almost anything.
Exactly.
And that I could see that becoming a real big issue.
Yes.
Interesting.
Or here's one that you're gonna be like, what? You're having aches and pains that you normally didn't have and you didn't get hurt. And you're like, oh, well, I'm getting old, I didn't stretch well, like this and that. So why would aches and pains be an anxiety symptom?
Right.
because it has to do with inflammation in the body.
Right.
And that's not knowing how to be released, because the nervous system keeps sending messages, trouble, trouble, trouble. So the body is all keyed up and is not releasing it with the right type of hormones and neurotransmitters.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And can you, I know you do relief through therapy, right?
Yes.
Would you say that that's like the only way? Are there some alternative ways? Should you be coupling that with better exercise habits? Like, what is that?
Oh,
look like?
100%. So I don't just do therapy.
Okay.
That's one arm of the program.
Okay.
We do a lifestyle program, and it's medically based.
Oh.
So it's supervised by a medical director, and we are actually working to create the way that the limbic system is performing. We are regulating the limbic system. We are working on your nervous system. We are working on your hormones, and we are working on your digestive health, like truly. So yes, so we are looking at very concretely what you're eating, what type of movement, what other types of habits do you have in your life, and we're looking at that even before, believe it or not, we're touching what you're thinking.
Interesting.
Yes,
Interesting.
because of this. Anxiety does not come from our mind, it comes from our body. So if we're gonna try, this is the mistake that everyone makes, that if you're gonna try to manage your anxiety symptoms up here, it's never gonna work, because this is not where the anxiety is coming from, it's coming from here. So you try to say, I'm okay, I'm gonna just, remember the things I have to be grateful for.
Right. Affirmations.
Affirmations, it's never gonna work. It might work for a minute or two, or a half an hour, or even 2 hours, maybe one day.
But not long term.
But not long term, because the body is creating the anxiety.
So if somebody was listening to this and they thought, oh my gosh, that kind of sounds like me, do you have a way to sit down with them and go through it?
Yes.
And I don't want to use the word diagnose, but I guess diagnose
Well,
where they're at.
we do a consultation.
Consultation, okay.
Yep, and we do a very, very thorough consultation.
Okay.
And take a look at what all the symptoms are and ask them detailed questions that probably nobody's asking them. And then give them the option of what they want to do to be able to help themselves.
Right. So it sounds like, a lot of people, they deal with their stress, or if they're calling it anxiety, whatever, through, self-medication.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Whatever that looks like.
Right,
Whether it's
whatever
a sleeping pill at night, or maybe 2 glasses of wine, whatever it looks like. This is a much healthier way that probably they should search out. Right? Like, just take the plunge and say, hey, maybe I should find out if this is
Well, the sleeping pill isn't always going to work. It's not going to keep working.
Yeah.
And the 2 glasses of wine are actually going to make the anxiety worse.
Interesting.
It literally, I can prove.
Right.
And I can show the person the symptoms they're having that are from the 2 glasses of wine. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not against wine.
Sure.
I'm saying using wine as a coping mechanism will actually make the problem you're trying to help worse.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. I could talk about that for 3 more days.
Oh, me too.
And I want to hear about how it brought you to this property.
Yeah, to
and
Hamel
that
House.
story about it. I mean, I just, and really what your intentions are around the property,
Yes,
even
yes.
though I know they are very vast, like a lot of different ways to use it. So please go there.
Oh, okay. So now, how did you go from therapist to luxury venues?
A host, yeah.
Okay, so how this happened is that, first of all, I knew when I saw this house, before knowing who owned the house, which is a special treat.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
so before knowing who owned this house, I saw this house and it had all of the features that I wanted in a home. I knew that I wanted a separate entrance with a casita that was really cozy, that I could see my clients. I don't see all my clients in person because I have many clients outside of the Coachella Valley, but the people who live here can come here, right? Or people who visit come here. I've had clients that have flown here and made a vacation out of meeting me and being able to do an intensive, right? So that's really great. So I knew that it had that, and then also, I know you can attest to this, I wanted a really big closet and I needed it to be...
And it is so big. And I've been in there a couple times.
And it needed to be attached to the master.
Sure.
So, and then I wanted a second master also. So it had all the bones that I needed.
Sure.
I could do a little bit of construction with not much work. I don't know if you know, but the bedroom where my dressing room is actually a Jack and Jill bedroom bathroom.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, so because I covered up the door.
Oh,
But so it was bedroom with the bathroom in the
Sure.
middle and the separate master.
Oh,
but I
okay.
just broke down the walls,
Yeah.
or covered up one wall and broke down another
Yeah.
wall.
Oh, and it works.
Yes. Yeah. So that's how it all started. And then when I was getting this house, which was all a blessing and a whole different conversation in itself, talk about manifesting and believing, because this house was way out of my price range.
Okay.
But long story short, it turned out that it was flippers from LA that owned the home, and this was their first flip in the area, and this was in 2016, and they overpriced the house and also had a very small window in which they could pay back their hard money loan.
Okay.
And they were edging into the summer. And I met them one time but didn't know their name. I met them one time in an open house, didn't know their name, and I had to say this because it's crazy. So just the way that God worked this whole thing out is that I knew I wanted this house. I saw that the sign went down, this for sale sign, but I looked because my brother-in-law is an appraiser, so he can look up everything.
Sure,
He goes,
sure.
well, the house is not sold and it's not taken off. It's still on MLS, so it's available. Okay, well, why is the sign down? Okay, so I'm trying to figure all this out, but I don't even know who the people are because it was in some business name, so you couldn't even contact them.
Right.
So it's July, and in the desert in 2016, and like hardly anyone lived here at that time. It's a whole different story here.
Sure.
It's pretty dead now, but it really was dead.
Exactly.
Yes.
Different world.
Different world. Exactly. And I'm walking into Whole Foods, and I literally bump into them, like literally plow into them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I go, oh, wow, you own that house, the house on Fairway. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I saw the sign down, and they're like, yeah, we couldn't get anyone, and our listing agreement expired, and we have this hard money loan, and we literally don't know what we're gonna do. So through a lot of talk and a lot of negotiation, they needed the money stat, and I had the money for whatever the hard money loan was, which was not the asking price or anywhere close to it.
Right.
And they said yes. I paid the hard money loan off. They were desperate.
Oh my gosh.
And I took the house.
Wow.
But I did them a favor because they literally were like,
they would have lost it, which would have been much worse for them financially.
Exactly.
If they had to default on that loan.
Yes.
Wow. So then you're here
for a bargain price.
Right, which it's in Indian Wells. We all know there aren't a lot of bargains. So you're here, and how do you find out?
Okay, so then I get this package at my front door, and it was, I'm not gonna say the name yet. It was it was addressed to a famous person, and it was my address with her name on it. I'm like, what? So I call the sender. And the sender says, oh, yeah, I guess I sent it to the wrong address because this person used to live in this house. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting to it, guys. I'm getting to it. And so then the sender said, well, you could mail it back to me. And it was in Tennessee. I go, I'm not mailing it back. Is this person nearby? Oh, yeah. They still live in the area. I said, well, why don't you have her come and pick it up? And so then she called me on the phone, like this famous person. I was like, what? I could not believe. I was like, I literally was shaking. I had to pull over on the side of the road. And that was not bad anxiety. That was excitedness, okay? That was not,
There's a difference.
That was not panic attack. That was, oh my gosh. Okay, so there was this person. All right, so we had to tell this story. So remember, I was worrywart. Remember that I had all these things. What I didn't share, and I will share now, is that I had a very sordid past and none of my own fault. My parents were addicts, and it's known, and it's not, I'm not talking out of school here. They're sober. They've been sober for a long time. They're working their program. They're doing excellent, and they've been doing excellent for years and years, but that wasn't the case when I was younger. Okay?
Well, they were young.
They were young, yep. And they were trying to cope as best as they could with all of their childhood issues and being young parents and all of that. Okay, so my school teachers, felt sorry for me. I don't want to say they really took pity on me, but they felt a little sorry for me. So they scooped up enough money when I was in second grade, knowing what a worrywart I was, and that I cried a lot in school, and I just seemed very sullen and just really worried, that they would save up enough money to take me to the Ice Capades in Detroit, Michigan, which is where I'm from. One of the very first Ice Capades.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wanted to meet my hero. I wanted to meet my role model. And I don't know if you guys know who I'm talking about yet, but who I'm talking about is Dorothy Hamill. So can you guys believe it? I got to buy my hero's house without knowing it, and then a package was inadvertently sent to this house, but it wasn't inadvertently sent. And I got to meet her face to face and hug her and now call her friend.
Yeah, that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story. Yeah,
So then I knew.
Every time I hear it, I just think how it all works and falls into place.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So here I have this house that I normally could not have afforded, that worked out and was able to help somebody else.
Which is so random.
Right?
Like that's that in itself.
And I get to live in my hero's house without even knowing it, and I get to meet her.
Right.
And she's been my hero since I've been 7.
Right.
Okay? And I just knew that this house was destined for something other than just being a place where I live.
Right. Right.
So I decided that this would turn into an event space, but not just a regular event space. This would be a space where those could come together for experience and love, bonded by experience and love. And that's where the name came. Obviously, Hamill, as in Dorothy, and then house, H-A-U-S, is literally slang for a place for those to come together collectively, bonded by experience and love.
Right.
So, Hamill House. And sure, you can rent this house for photo shoots, you can rent this house for commercial filming, you can rent this house for corporate events, and you're also going to be treated and feel like you are loved, seen, known, and understood in a way that you would not get in any other venue. I promise that.
Absolutely. And of course you named off all the when people think event space and, weddings and bachelorette, but also, what if you just wanted a retreat with your girlfriends, and
yes,
maybe it's just something where a masseuse came, or, some sort of event like that. That's something that you want to encourage here.
Yes.
Health and wellness. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So we do a lot of retreats. We have some special things that are going to be being built that are going to make it even a bigger retreat area. But we have a humongous pool, and we have a very nice jacuzzi and lots of other spaces for a retreat-like setting.
Yes. Yeah. And it's and how long have you been doing this? Because you host it. You and your husband actually host when you have guests here.
Yes.
And how long have you been doing that?
So I have been doing that since 2018.
Okay.
So this house, although beautiful in 2016,
sure,
the people that we got it from, they hadn't finished with everything, and they couldn't afford to finish it all.
Sure.
So we had a lot of supplies and materials in our garage, and we had to finish it. So it took a little bit because, again, we live in Indian Wells, but we're not the Indian Wells resident type. We work and we have to pay as we go.
Sure.
So
and
we
did it.
And we did it. And it's still getting improved every single time. My promise is every single time a new renter comes, there will be an improvement from the last time they were here.
Yeah. And how do people find out? Well, first and foremost, how do people find out or connect with you in regards to the anxiety therapy? How would they go about doing that?
So the best and easiest way is to find me on Instagram.
Okay.
And at my name, Elizabeth Scarcella.
Okay.
And they can find me on Instagram for Hamill House too. Perfect. And Hamill House has a website as well, which is of the same name, hamillhouse.com.
Yeah. And anybody on my social media has seen multiple videos
yes,
of
I
this
know.
beautiful property.
I
just can't. It's
I'm
just
so
gorgeous.
grateful.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful.
Well, and I have to say too, like one of the things that was so apparent being in here, even as a first guest, was the energy around it, and you can feel the acceptance and the welcomeness, and just please go around, and it's just so readily apparent. Like it's the energy, like you said earlier, the energy is really, really there and so apparent. Like you just walk into the door and you feel it. This is
you.
really, really special. And I think, I learned a lot about anxiety and what that looks like and how to maybe see this, the signs in that. And do you think that it's often in kids of people who were addicts or?
Oh, of course,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, because not only because of the way they're being raised,
Mhm.
but also genetically and chemically speaking, if their parent was an addict when they were in utero,
Right.
then for sure they're going to have some types of issues because they're going to have limbic system dysfunction at birth.
Right.
Mhm.
So, you mentioned a couple times, like, this isn't in Indian Wells, but you've got to work for it and pay for it as you go. So there was a lot of risk in what you decided to do. This was not just like a one-off, I'm going to create a fabulous event space. Like,
Right.
there's a lot of risk.
There
And
is.
what was the one thing that just made you say, I don't care, like, it's worth the risk?
So I'm a believer
Mm-hmm.
in Christ, and I just knew there's all these things that came together.
Yeah.
There's no way that this house should just be used for someone to sleep in.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it wasn't even that much of a risk. And I'm not a risk taker.
Okay.
Like I am not risky with my investments, I'm not risky with my body, I'm not like jumping out of planes, I'm not like that kind. You know what I mean? I don't
Right.
even like to go skiing because I'm afraid I'm gonna break a leg. I don't even want to open a jar, I could break a nail. I mean, seriously, I do not like risk, right? But this did not ever feel like a risk to me.
Ah, interesting.
It felt like a mission.
Mhm.
It's something I have to do.
It's a purpose.
Yes, it's a purpose.
When you have a purpose, everything kind of shows up the way it should.
Exactly. And I wanted to say one thing too, if I can,
Of course, yeah.
about you feeling welcome here. It's not just because of me, but thank you. It's not my energy that's here. This home also, as it applies to anxiety and healing, this home is actually created to be a neuro-aesthetically correct. Okay? So
Interesting.
neuroaesthetics is a form of psychology.
Mm.
So the people, the Sanskrit people who believe in Sanskrit and Reiki and yoga would get really mad at me and say, no, we've been doing feng shui forever. You're right, you have been, and no one's taken it away. The psychiatrists in this world and doctors in this world have figured out a way, researchers have figured out a way to take the kind of the basis of feng shui and see what the chemical application is on our body. And so by looking at different textures, colors, shapes, placement, we can create a space such that we can elicit a chemical reaction in somebody.
We had a really great conversation before this started about how fabulously decorated and well thought out this place is. That's why.
Right.
That's why. And
So you'll
that's
see,
so
like,
interesting.
if there's a bunch of squares, you'll find a circle someplace. So
Mhm.
in the room that I watch TV and I do my computer work, I don't sit at a desk because it just doesn't work for me. Circles are very great for people that have anxiety, unless there's too many circles, and then that can create anxiety and or create you to be demotivated. So, but I learned how to use circles or cylinder type shapes and different textures to create a sense of calm.
It's so, and also as a real estate agent, there's times I've gone into a house that is not like that. Like, and not intentional from the seller, like they just, whatever,
Yeah.
they put this paint here and this floor here and something different. And it really feels like, oh my gosh, I feel so uncomfortable and anxious, like I don't want to be in here.
And chaotic.
It's so crazy, and that makes such perfect sense that you said that. It makes such perfect. I mean, Christina, we've been in some houses,
Oh yeah.
and they really leave feeling like, oh man, I would never buy that house, right? So
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah, so this
Huh.
is created to be neuroaesthetically correct.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to share today?
I just want you to know that if you're suffering with anxiety, again, it's not your fault. It is not your fault. You did nothing wrong for this to happen. You couldn't have caused it any more than you could have caused diabetes to yourself. However, it is your responsibility to get healed, and it can be healed. Don't let anyone tell you that anxiety can just be managed. Those are people that are believing that anxiety comes from the mind. When anxiety comes from the body, and we can heal the body, and we can, because the limbic system is the oldest part of our body and our brain. that wants to be healed because it runs our entire body. It's the part of our body that's beating our heart, making us breathe right now, and making me talk 1,000,000 miles a minute. That is the limbic system. It needs to be healed in order for us to be able to survive. So when we heal the limbic system, you can live without anxiety.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you so
much
for taking this time. And we'll say goodbye now. And until next time, thank you so much.